Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting Alpha X Pro replay cast. Once again, we're going into the ASUS Republic of Gamers tournament, where we are going to see these two battle it out. So without further ado, spawning up in the top position, he is MARU. And his opponent down here in the bottom, he is REYNOR. So this is going to be an exciting series. This is really the kind of last event that MARU has done with the now disbanded generic Green Wings. So it's really got to hold a special place that he made it so far. And you know what? This is another TVZ that we're casting from this tournament, where it's a Korean Terran versus a European Zerg. So that's already pretty cool to see. And you know what? MARU just going to go up to his old tricks to start things off. He's not really in the mood to make this go too long, so already we've got the 2 racks, and unfortunately for him, REYNOR has already scouted it. He is not going to fall for any of MARU's tricks right now. MARU seems to be kind of taking this in stride, getting that first SCV to finish up the one that is closer to being done. Now, unfortunately, he will not be able to finish that second rack, so I think he just needs to cancel that. I don't think it's really a good idea to continue with this too much, just because it's going to really delay you in the long run. Not going to be able to really get too much, and even just going to get the Marine out there, which is kind of interesting as... yeah, that's just pretty much going to be chased down. The drone's a little bit quicker there. You know, REYNOR did expend a lot of time kind of sending these drones across. Look at that. That is a very happy drone right there. He's got a story to tell, as long as he can make it home to tell it, that is. But, you know, yeah, it's going to slow you down a little bit in the later stages of the game, just trying to get up your tech and stuff. We do have that factory starting right about now. The Reaper are going to be coming in a little bit late just to make sure everything is right with the world. But yeah, there's not really too much MARU can do off the back of this. He has to kind of slow down a little bit just to, you know, kind of get back into rhythm of this after a failed proxy. Reaper actually in time to stop the third hatch, so that is a great way to start things off. And he's actually going up to a 3CC of his own. So basically what that allows him to do is that it will allow him to kind of get that power-up stage, that three base Terran, which is so scary to deal with. As some people call it the war machine. And I mean, it's still anyone's game. Just the fact that REYNOR is getting this amazing scouting information is really good for him. It's just allowing him to really kind of adjust his play style. And you do see we have the roaches in the production tab, so he's going to be a little bit more aggressive now that he sees there's not really that much tech here for MARU. And yeah, I mean, I'm going to be interested to see when he does decide to move out. First couple of Hellions do make it in, not too much at home, except for the Hellions that just now popped. REYNOR just going to try and get a little bit of a scout here. He does not succeed, really. But from here, it's pretty much a game of cat and mouse. REYNOR's starting to explode in terms of that army supply. And yeah, there you go. He's going to be sending the roaches across. He's got the Ravagers going to be starting to morph as well to take care of those bunkers. And there's not really a ton back at home for MARU. Keep in mind he does have that Banshee on the production tab, so that's going to help out a bit, but I mean, this is still a pretty dicey position as the bunkers aren't complete. The Hellions trying to get surrounded, but they do not. I mean, from here, MARU should be able to hold, but the question is how committed to this push is REYNOR. Already, he's just going to dive on top of everything, keep the SCVs off of the bunker, so they will fall. And from there, it's going to be a fighting retreat to the high ground as the Hellions all start to crash and burn. Now the Banshee is going to be able to help clean this up, but already he has sustained quite a bit of damage. Losing that second base is mining time for quite a long time. 11 workers going down as well. And I mean, REYNOR, he's pretty much done with this attack. He doesn't really have too much else to do. Luckily for MARU, he does have that third base up and running, so he's going to be able to kind of fix his economy a little bit faster, which is good for him. But now REYNOR's got that kind of explosion that you're really expecting from a Zerg player. He's going up to that 61 workers, 70 about to be on the way. And I mean, from here, he can get his upgrades, he can get his lair tech started, and he can really defend because MARU doesn't really have a counterattack planned just yet. Banshee's just going to be flying around a little bit, maybe get a couple more kills, but the Queens are there to kind of deflect that for now. And I mean, from here, it looks like drone production has kind of halted, which is okay because it is just going to mean that REYNOR is going to start exploding in terms of that roach count once again. MARU's still kind of powered up. He's got that 4 and 5 rack started as well, trying to land his third base, which is going to get kind of cleaned up by the counterattack. But I mean, from here, there is still a pretty big window for REYNOR to get a decent attack coming in. There's only one siege tank out, I believe. Yeah, and there it is. Banshee's going to try and help out on the front, but it looks like he's just going to go all in with this, getting the Queens involved as well. And this is really scary for MARU. As all these upgrades start to finish up, there's not really going to be that much splash. And actually, that's a very aggressive siege up there, right on the third base. I don't think REYNOR really is going to care about that too much, as he can just go straight for the natural middle line. And look at that, MARU having to reposition already. Ravager's going to start to morph in. He's taking a couple of cheeky pot shots right there, so not the best start, but there you go. The siege tanks start to fall. And what does MARU really have here to help? He's got quite a bit of bio, but this is just an overwhelming number. He's down below 100 supply, and I think REYNOR's just going to push his way in to a W for this first game. As the SCVs are pulled, the siege tank does go down, so that is the entirety of the splash. The Roaches just going to power their way forward with the power of numbers. GG is called, and REYNOR will take game number 1. All right, we are back in game number 2. Without further ado, spawning in the bottom position, he is MARU. And his opponent up here in the top, he is REYNOR. So overall, REYNOR is just showing that when Maru's going to be a little bit too crazy for him, he can just kind of put on that aggression and keep him back, make sure that he is stuck in his own base, and really just kind of prevent any sort of cheeky shenanigans from coming out. And I mean, Maru is one of those players, he's really kind of allergic to putting buildings in his own base. He loves doing those proxies, trying to get that edge early on, but you know, REYNOR is really doing a good job of kind of reacting to that. He's really getting that scout around, which is super important. And, you know, it's really good to see him kind of adjust his play style versus MARU. Alright, so I'm curious to see where MARU is going to be going with this. It does look like he is going to be sending that SCV across the map. I think this is really just a scouter. I don't really think he's going to be hiding anything with this, just because that did pass through the Overlord's line of sight. So REYNOR knows about it. He knows that something is out on the map. And yeah, there you go. It's going to be going straight to the base. I don't think it's good to proxy 2 games in a row. That's a pro tip from a non-pro. So take it how you will. But yeah, looks like we're actually just going to have a pretty normal start here to this game. 2 minutes in and nothing cheeky, no shenanigans. Now the question is, how much is this first Reaper going to get done? He actually did get a drone kill in the last game, which is absolutely fantastic. It's way more damage than you really expect to get with it. And small victories early on can lead to bigger things later. But MARU just going to barely edge his way out of there. I mean, behind this, a lot of Terrans have decided on this 3CC a little bit more quickly to kind of stay even versus the Zerg players. It's a lot easier for them to get that economy rolling up, stay relatively safe as well. And, I mean, it really does work. That last game, not really an emphasis on that, but this time, REYNOR's not scouting it, which is the key difference. He doesn't know about it, so he's not going to be kind of throwing down any reactionary tech. He's not got the Baneling Nest or the Ro4. So this time it has a lot more potential to work here, as the Reaper going to get taken out. So that's the end of any scouting information for MARU. See, now REYNOR does have the information that he needs. But at this point, it's a little bit late to start going for any sort of big attack. You've got a huge drone explosion right there. 7 more drones on the production tab, so you don't really have a ton of larvae. And I think MARU has gotten fully away with it. Now, another thing to note, he has stopped at 4 Hellions, but he's only sending these 2 across the map, so not really being super aggressive at all, really. Doesn't want to kind of give a small edge to REYNOR in any sense of the imagination here. But yeah, I mean, nothing too much else to say about this one. It's just very cookie cutter from both sides. I do think he should have just dived in there, honestly. He could have gotten a ton of drone kills, as the Lings were a bit out of position and the Queen's not really enough to stop that. But, you know, we've got that lair tag coming up. The upgrades are starting a little bit behind MARU's, but honestly, that's not a huge deal. That's kind of the expected timings. Got the 4th base as well. And it looks like MARU's just going to be kind of slowly moving out with his bases. Just trying to make sure that he's able to defend them. He's got Stim already, Combat Shield as well. But, you know, REYNOR has had a lot of time here to kind of just build up, so any kind of attack out of MARU is going to have to be pretty committed to start things off. We should be seeing the 2 medevac pick up here in just a little bit. Yeah, there you go. 16 Marines is all it takes. All right, so behind this, we do see as well that Spire starting up. So you got to be a little bit more careful with your drops in that situation. But, yeah, you know, REYNOR, I don't think he's going to really take too much damage from this. He is in position. He saw pretty much everything that he needs to see. And the creep does give him a really heavy warning system right now, allowing him to kind of morph in these banelings and go from there. But, ooh, MARU taking a little bit too much time to get into the main base. That's going to buy the Lings enough time to get in. I do like how he's kind of just focusing on clearing up the creep on both sides. Really at this stage, it's really a good idea to do that, just because if you don't, your opponent is just going to have a huge advantage in terms of that vision, in terms of getting those attacks in. It's going to be a lot more difficult moving across the map. But here we go. We do see MARU going to be consolidating a lot of his forces here. He can morph these into Hellbats. He has the armory off the back of this. And, you know, REYNOR's just going to say, to heck with it. I'm going to go for a counterattack. So REYNOR strikes first. And he's already doing a fantastic job back there. But the Banelings in the front do get taken down by the Hellbats. MARU not completely paying attention there, so he is going to lose quite a few of his units if he's not looking. But he's just going to go for the main base, try and find a way in after losing 9 workers. That is humongous amounts of damage. And it's really the best thing REYNOR can do. Every single time MARU attacks, he's going to be so in your face, just really pounding through these run-bys. And that's really all he has to do as well. Here we go. We do see the Queens start to fall a little bit. Good focus fire there. But now the Mutalisks are going to be enough to kind of shoo this away. And yeah, they're going to chase the full medevacs. They know a prize when they see it. Now you kind of see the different couple of moves here that MARU is going to be reacting to. He's got the Thor in production, his +2 drilling claws. He's got all the tools that he needs, so I definitely can't say he's behind by any stretch of the imagination. Even losing those workers, he's still relatively even, going up to a 4th base of his own as well. And I mean, the only big thing is he needs to kind of keep some of these medevacs alive, because you don't want to be remaking them. At this stage, you want to be expending your gas on those Thors, on the Widow Mines, Marauders. Just a lot of things here, as taking a couple of huge shots right there. Not enough to kill them, unfortunately, so they will mostly survive. Just taking a look at that. He lost 3 in that engagement. As that Widow Mine kind of just hanging out on its own. Yeah, Ban's going to clean up the Widow Mines, which is pretty funny to see. Just going to open up a little bit more attack path for those Mutalisks, but REYNOR still is gearing up towards that 4th base. A nice little minefield to deal with this. And unfortunately, he loses his detection just for a little bit there, but you know, that is enough time for MARU to get over here and defend. REYNOR is maxed out, so he's going to start building up that bank, but he's not going to be able to break this position anytime soon as MARU's starting to explode. And, you know, MARU has been playing it a bit differently recently. We used to see him a bit more aggressive. These days, he's kind of more content to go towards the later stages of the game, kind of just wear you down. Yeah, he really has been preferring that recently in a lot of his matches as the Bane is going to be coming in. The SCVs have already been pulled, so they're not going to get the greatest of connections. Mita's trying to get something done, but there is enough missile turrets and reinforcements there to defend. The Banelings, though, are going to get right on top of the 4th, and that is going to get taken down, as well as the other one he's making. So far, this is really good for REYNOR still. Got a big strike coming in from MARU. He's kind of dividing up his forces to clear up some of that creep, but he has to be careful for that Mutalisk count. And no, he's actually just going to decide to hold back for a little bit to help deal with that overwhelming Mutaball. He does clean up a couple more, which is pretty nice. But here we go. They're going to roll their way forward, not really getting the best of connections. Going to waste a couple on the Marauders as well. There's still quite a bit in the back, however, so I don't think he's going to be too angry about that. As a huge counterattack coming in from REYNOR, the Banelings going to get all on top of the production, and that is going to go down as he rolls his way forward. There's just so many Banelings, but it's not enough. So MARU going to continuously push this location. And he does save his own 3rd base here. Essentially, REYNOR just needs to buy time to get up a higher Baneling count to deal with this. Mita's going to be focused fire down. Now, quite a few of them will fall, but this will get cleaned up as the next attack going to be moving its way forward, but there's not a lot of anti-air with it. So MARU really does have to back up. That Mutaball looking less scary by the minute. As REYNOR just been trading out quite a few of his forces. Does he have a hive is the question. Yes, he does. Which is good, because about at this stage of the game, you really can't afford not to have one. As your Terran opponent's on +3 upgrades, he's getting those armor upgrades as well. And I mean, REYNOR, he's trying to get something done here at the 4th, but he's not really able to get in there. Only taking down the missile turret and avoiding the Widow Mines as best he can. This is really just a kind of scrappy game, blow for blow from both of these sides. As soon as REYNOR starts to get the damage done, MARU pushes in and gets the kill on the bases that he needs to keep this game rolling. You know, here we go. He does lose a medevac very early on, but he's going to continue the push. Now the Marauders in the front going to soak up a lot of these Banelings that are pushing their way forward, but already we do see another counterattack coming in to take care of the reinforcements. Will it be enough is the big question, as MARU's just going to looks to be rotating around towards that 5th. go. The Muta's just flying around trying to get done what they can. The Marauders coming forward. And really, that's kind of the big problem here. REYNOR is expending a lot of his Banelings on the Marauders in the front, so the Marines in the back have been able to kind of clean house, but 13 more workers going down. I don't think MARU's going to really care about that as much, because at this stage, you do kind of want to expend some of his workers just so he can go for a bigger army and just rely on the mules for his mineral income. I don't know, you can't really afford to lose units for free, though. So now MARU has kept this attack going, but he's also got a 1-2 punch down here. The Ultra is going to be enough to help clean this up. They don't have chitinous, however, so if you could focus fire those down, it'd be wonderful. But there's enough Banelings to clean up on this side. The Ultra is not enough to clean up, and this base will go down. And you know, I'm kind of worried for REYNOR right now. He hasn't really been able to keep that forward momentum that he had early on. And MARU just really slowly picking him apart here. It's almost death by 1,000 cuts. As, you know, a little bit of a momentum shift back in REYNOR's favor. But again, there's just enough here for MARU to hold on. And he might lose this base, however, with the Banelings. Yeah, just a big Baneling explosion there. But you know, MARU's already situated on this side. He's pretty equal on the base count. Currently, it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bases to 4. So he's not in a bad position by any stretch of the imagination here. And he just wants to keep this forward pressure going. Focusing down a couple of those Ultras, trying to get those expensive pickoffs, while his secondary force is going to go straight for this base down here. Mutaball getting relatively cleaned up, although it will finish off the forces. But MARU always is getting out of it with a majority of his units. So he always has his army kind of saved, meaning that REYNOR can't get any counterattack damage in. Yeah, there you go. Only about 12 to 13, 18 actually, Mutalisks left, and they've really been kind of neutered here as MARU just building turrets everywhere and hiding those Widow Mines all over the map. And I think from here, the thing is, most of REYNOR's bases are starting to mine out. He's having to retake a good chunk of them. So he's not really getting the best value out of them. As MARU, take a look at that income graph right now, up to 2,000 mineral difference. As another base goes down, the Ultra's not going to be enough here, as you can just pick those off and go in. But once again, this base is under threat. This is actually the natural, lifted up and over. I think MARU feels as long as he can be efficient and get the snipes on these bases, I think he's perfectly content to take these trades. The problem is he just needs to get a little bit more done on the other side in order to win it. The trades are nice, but they're just going to make this game go on for much longer. Another snipe over here. REYNOR going to be defending this side, but there is a sizable bio ball here. But the Banelings, MARU not paying attention, so they will get some decent connections. Unfortunately, though, the main bulk of MARU's forces is up here in the top. I think another base snipe is exactly what MARU needs to start clearing out, start cleaning up this game. There's not really that much here for REYNOR, and his production tab is looking a little bit scarce. Although, you know, if MARU takes engagements like that, it's not really going to matter because he's losing too much back at home. 17, 18, 20 more workers going down, and a bit of a run by down at the bottom as well. Going to be cleaning up that location. So MARU going to be a little bit strapped for cash, but so is REYNOR at this stage. This is pretty much one of the only clean mining bases he has left. Making some unfavorable trades with the missile turrets as well. I don't want to say MARU's won it outright right now, but he has definitely been making the right moves here. And this is enough to kind of close out this game. Yeah, because REYNOR skint broke right now. He's having to remake those hatcheries, so a lot of that income is gone. It's pretty much reactionary right now. And there you have it. GG is called. Very crisp, very clean from MARU for game number 2. So stick around. We're going to be heading into a tie score game number 3. So a fast one and a slow one. Let's see what game they're going to be bringing us out here. Formerly of Generic Green Wings, this is MARU. And up here in the top, I believe he's still playing for Clash. He is REYNOR. So I think I've kind of figured out what MARU wants to do in these games. He's going to be kind of shooting for the later stages just to make sure that he can kind of wear down his opponent, as he has stayed pretty relatively equal to REYNOR in a lot of these stages of the game. And I mean, that seems to be where he's been most comfortable recently, with those 1-2 rotations, attacking in one location, wearing down the army, and then hitting in the next one. So I mean, REYNOR just really looking to struggle in the later stages. And I'm really hesitant to say that he's going to lose every single game that goes that way, but I mean, if MARU plays like he did, then it's going to be a really tricky proposition after we hit the 15 to 16 minute mark. If anyone can do it, though, it's REYNOR. REYNOR is actually, I don't want to say the best, but he is certainly one of the best Zerg players in the world. He is no stranger to victories against Koreans. Really, he's one of the players leading the charge here, especially since he did go to BlizzCon last year and make it all the way to the finals, unfortunately losing at the very last stage. But, I mean, what can you really expect? He had, you know, he had a very tough opponent there, but he still made amazing games out of it. And I got to say, I'm kind of weirded out by the fact that Zergs are taking this lower ground third base. We did see it in Serral versus Bjorn as well. And while it's good for kind of getting that creep spread forward, it's still a really difficult location to kind of hold versus siege tank pushes, which a lot of Terran players do like. You know, you've got a really good position here to drop those siege tanks. A nice defensible position. So MARU does have the ability to kind of react to that, as we do see he's got the tech lab building, and he's going for a 2-1-1, which, you know, I like that. I like that idea from him. He kind of just wants to make this a little bit of a more aggressive game. He doesn't want to make every game go into the late game. He just wants to keep REYNOR off his toes. Now, one thing I've been loving about REYNOR in this series is just he's having his Overlord scout out relatively quickly, which is really important to see. He didn't see the additional tech lab, but he can kind of assume from here that this is that 2-1-1 strategy that is just very popular from these Korean Terrans. You know, Byun does it a ton, and he's kind of, I don't want to say he's taught it, but he has pretty much imbued it in the rest of his Korean counterparts. So already, REYNOR going to be breaking down this rock location. Pretty smart. Like I was saying, that's a good siege tank position, so you do need to clean that up. And yeah, from what it looks like, we are going to be seeing him go into siege tanks for his next stage of attack. But we'll have to see how much damage can he get done with this first couple of medevacs. Yeah, it looks like he's just going to go straight for the high ground here. REYNOR going to be getting a huge counterattack coming through. So MARU does need to finish that wall, but actually, you know, those Lings are going to be a little bit out of position as MARU's going straight for the main base. Yeah, he realizes that he can't do that, though. He will back on out, get an Overlord snipe, which is pretty nice. That's going to supply block REYNOR for a little bit. But being very cautious here, he's not going to press forward onto the creep too far. He gets another cheeky Overlord snipe, so REYNOR going to have to expend a lot of minerals to kind of fix that. Yeah, there we go. We got the siege tanks in the back for the next big push. And this is kind of what I was saying earlier. As a Terran player, you always need to have your next attack planned. You really can't afford to let the Zerg player have a moment of peace. Otherwise, they're just going to really explode in terms of that economy. And from there, they just have this innate ability to overwhelm you with the size of their force. But you know what? Here we go. REYNOR going to be going for a big attack. And he's actually going to catch MARU outside of his base. If he could get the siege tank, that'd be lovely for him. But MARU just going to continuously fight in this location. He will save the 2 siege tanks. And REYNOR did expend quite a bit with that attack. So now MARU going to go on the attack. Again, not being as aggressive as he could be here. REYNOR going for another little poke and prod. This is going to be able to pick off the reinforcements if there were any, but yeah, a couple of Marines is going to be able to clean that out. And actually, you know, MARU going to be repositioning, might even go straight for the main base. Now, keep in mind, REYNOR is not expanding to that top side, so this is not really the best location to transfer to. The siege tanks doing more harm than good as well. They will be cleaned up after taking out a good chunk of those Marines as well as the Lings. You know, REYNOR going to be keeping that low ground expansion. So he hasn't really taken that much damage at all, really. Going up to those +2 upgrades. MARU only on 1-1. Not even 1-1, just 1. So this is a fantastic lead for REYNOR that he's just continuously building up over time. I'm a little bit worried for MARU's position. Even losing that full mana back, my goodness, this is not good at all. You know what? From here, it does look like REYNOR's going to be going into that later game lurkers. Just with that Hydralisk Den dropping. Now MARU's still on the attack. He still wants to have a presence out in the map. He just has to be a little bit more careful, as the link count has risen quite heavily. Does he have a Baneling Nest? He does. He just isn't going to be making any yet. He wants to expend that gas on the Hydras. Yeah, a little bit of a 1-2 action here. We've got that one hatchery that is going to go down. Now, MARU is going to use this to see that the Hydralisks are here. So from there, he can kind of assume that there are going to be lurkers as he gets the bottom queens. That is actually a nice pickoff, as that means the creep spread is going to be quite delayed from now on. And now it's pretty much just creep denial for MARU as he's starting to get that transition back into the siege tanks. The siege tanks really are the better choice versus Hydralisks and lurkers. They do have the range to defeat them. Should know, to REYNOR's credit, he does have that infestation pit coming on up. Still got a pretty healthy Baneling count as well soon. Now that he's got that Hydralisk count, he can kind of start expending that gas in other locations. But yeah, as that hive starts up, those lurker upgrades are going to be starting to come in as well. And MARU is quite content to just stay on this 3 bases for a little bit longer, it looks like. Does he have another CC? Okay, he has one. He's just not really using it at the time. The Widowmites are going to get picked off as well. One of them will be saved on the high ground. But I mean, REYNOR's always poised to strike. He's also going to get picked. He's also going to be scouted, so he will send a small smattering of units down at the bottom. There are a ton of lings here, but honestly, MARU could just drop into this. And that's exactly what he's going to do. He's going to trade out as best he can right now before getting on out of there. Oh my goodness. Is he going to get those off? I do see one lurker getting picked off at the bottom as he picks up and low leads. Are going to focus fire the Banelings, and he's actually just going to stand and fight. He's also got a big attack coming down here at the natural. That's going to get quite a few worker kills before getting cleaned up. And I mean, REYNOR's starting to fall apart a little bit. His force is just not in position to deal with this. Oh no, the lurker den will go down as well. The second lurker den will go down too. So MARU gonna stop the upgrades, stop the lurker production. My goodness. I think REYNOR just wasn't really in position to defend from there. This is not good at all. Yeah, he's pretty much got to rely on 3 slower lurkers because they won't have the range and they won't have anything else that he needs, but he does get a couple of snipes off those medevacs. Pretty darn nice. And yeah, once again, he's out of position in the main base, so he's going to have to rotate around with a good chunk of his army. Small attack coming down on the south side, but he actually got rid of the Baneling bomb at the bottom, or at the top rather. I mean, from here, MARU is really just starting to pick him apart slowly but surely. I do think MARU is still a bit more defensive than I would like. He could go for a big push here pretty soon if he wanted to. Gonna try and fight the queens, but there is so much transfuse energy, I don't think you're ever gonna get through that. Hydra's Den is going to get focus fire down. He will lose the drop for that, but I think that was worth it just to deny some of that tech. Yeah, he actually did stop the upgrade that was going there as well. And now from here, REYNOR, he needs to consolidate a little bit. He needs to go for some sort of attack. MARU's economy just hasn't been touched in the last 10 or so minutes. And that's really just being stressed. That's just making it more stressful for REYNOR in this stage. As here we go, a big strike going to be coming down here. The lurker going to burrow in the back. A couple of those sea tanks going to get pulled forward, but they will get a pot shot off before they do fall. And REYNOR is on the retreat, but he also has another attack coming up here towards the relatively undefended high ground. Gotta be careful, don't want to lose those ghosts to the Banelings. I mean, okay, that was a little bit bobbled there by REYNOR. Just didn't have enough Banelings to kind of clean that up. But the Lurkers is where the real power of this army is, and he is going to clean up house at the 4th. I mean, MARU still isn't remaxed out. He's not really making too much. He's got nukes on the way, which is pretty good, but I mean, I just don't know. It looked so great for him, but now losing that base, losing a lot of momentum there, as he hasn't really been out on the map. And he can't really move out on the map because he has such a defensive army that it's just really difficult for him to move out. Couple of good yoinks as well as the Lurkers moving on in. They're going to siege up right outside the natural. The Ghosts need to get a couple of snipes, but there is still vision. So they're not going to be able to really get too close to this. A nuke going to be coming on down to try and clean this up. But REYNOR's just going to retreat from that. Lurker's going to get a couple more kills before falling. And yeah, we do see a small little smattering of lings up there. Again, I'm a little bit worried here. Taking a look at this production, it's mostly just siege tanks, ghosts, and a couple of marauders. That is such a defensive force that REYNOR's really going to have full control of this map. REYNOR even going to be taking some of MARU's bases in the bottom. And you know, I think this defensive strategy from MARU can work in a lot of different situations, just not really right now, I feel. Here we go once again. REYNOR just going to siege up those lurkers. He's going to get a couple of pokes down here, but that's not going to be enough as the Vipers are going to start yoinking those medevacs. Not really that much at home to defend this, as here we go. The big attack has come down. Blinding Cloud's going to clean up the tank line. And you know, REYNOR is forced back, but from here he really can just whittle down MARU, as he's got 42 more links on the production tab, 5 more Hydralisks, which he can morph back into lurkers. Those things just still doing nothing. And yeah, what is MARU really supposed to do in this situation? He's losing ground. Not even really able to take this low ground, this easier base location either, because REYNOR is just all over him with a very fast reinforcement point with that lower expansion. I don't know. It's pretty. It's you know, REYNOR is still forcing MARU to stay at home. The Ghost might get cleaned up here if you're not careful. They have to fall back. Man, they're just going to detonate, not get the connections that they need. But, you know, REYNOR has taken this location. MARU going to try and take it back. You know, MARU is kind of stabilizing here a little bit. He still needs to take another base if he wants to stay relatively even, because look at that. It's almost a 2,700 middle income difference there. Take a look at that army. It's just not as good as it could be, all things considered. Queen's going to be able to push this back, focusing down the medevacs, and once again he gets lifted up. That's the natural that's got floated over. Yeah, there we go. He does get a couple of snipes, but at what cost? Couple of huge Baneling connections going down on top of all the ghosts. They don't actually fall. They just have too much armor right now. But even with all of that, MARU is down over 40 supply. I mean, I just don't know how he can come back from this. His army is super defensive. He can't move in. He can't attack without really exposing himself here, as the Blinding Clouds are good for the siege tanks. And the Banelings are good to keep the ghosts away. He's going to try and move his way forward. A couple of Queens do get sniped. Lone Baneling right there. Maru's going to try and snipe off the detection so that they can get a little bit closer to this army. Maru's going to finally try and retake this bottom position, but again, once he loses this base, he sacrificed the top a bit. You know, I'm kind of curious to see where this game is going to continue to go, as REYNOR going to be moving in. He's just trying to poke his way forward with his forces. Looks like a good chunk of the Lynx do get taken down here, so he's not really taking the best of fights. Here at the bottom, range supply starting to plummet, but again, 137 to 172. That's not an insurmountable odd, but that is still just really difficult when you're only producing about 6 Marines, 3 Marauders, and a Ghost at a time. You can trade that out all day, but the Zerg player is just going to wear you down more than you can actually think. He's going to buy some time for the Lynx to get on top of this. There is a lot of Marauders, so that he will push the Lynx back. But the Queens just don't die. They have those +3 upgrades, keeping them alive, as well as the transfuses, and MARU will be forced back once again. Going to consolidate on the tank line. But he's losing way too many workers at home. Lurkers burrowed all over the economy. I don't actually think they have high ground vision. Or just a little bit out of range. So he's going to force MARU back once again. Here we go. The bandit's going to get on top of a couple of those ghosts, get some decent connections, but they will start to get cleaned up. The Lurker's going to burrow right on top. Scans go down, revealing all of them, though. And they will get taken down. So MARU finally making some headway. He's broken a little bit of REYNOR's supply. Not a ton just yet, but still, it is some headway. Going to get kill up here at the top. He's going to be rotating around to that 12 o'clock position. Finishes off the Lurkers. There you go, a big old parasitic bomb. And once again, he's forced back. More Lings, Lurkers in the production tab. Scan's going to go down, revealing where these bases are. I mean, he's still fighting it out, I gotta say. Commendable, but even with taking down this base, is it enough, as he's going to be losing this top location? REYNOR just going to sack some supply to take care of that side. A lot more SCVs going down. There's not that much mining left for MARU. He's down to 600 minerals a minute. And from here, MARU's going to try and trade base for base. Just trying to make anything work. So we see REYNOR just kind of gearing up. Does he actually have many Banelings left? No, he actually only has that one Baneling. He hasn't morphed any more in because his gas income isn't really the best right now. A lot of those ghosts starting to fall to the Lurkers as well. They don't have the snipes in order to clean them up. So with that going down and REYNOR overwhelming this position, I think he has finally broken the back of MARU. GG is called, and REYNOR will go up to match point. See you in game number 4. And welcome back. After an exciting game number 3, let's introduce the players. Spawning down here in the bottom position, he is MARU. And his opponent up here on match point, it is REYNOR. And I mean, that game was absolutely exciting. It kind of seemed like REYNOR was kind of hitting his head against a brick wall multiple times, that brick wall being that siege tank line. But honestly, he was able to break it and kind of whittle down MARU to the point where it was just so impossible to defend against it. And I mean, from there, I think that's kind of how REYNOR has to play it when it gets to the later stages of the game. MARU kind of showing recently that he does want to kind of stay back, kind of be a little bit more defensive, maybe get some small harassment here and there in the later stages, but honestly he seems quite content to secure base locations and force you to come to him. So I think REYNOR is going to have to give him that wish if the games go on for too long, and instead just kind of kill him slowly and surely. It's kind of funny not to see Broodlords versus that. I think Broodlords would have actually been a pretty good choice. Just keep the Banelings in front to help out with the Ghosts, and you could really stay for days in a lot of those different locations. But I digress on that point, as nothing too crazy coming out of either side just yet. It's a pretty standard hatch gas pool. And a Reaper coming out for MARU, so neither side going to be too crazy early on. Yeah, from here, okay. So REYNOR going to be going for a little bit of a faster third base. That's always pretty nice, just because it does allow you to kind of power up, be a bit more aggressive. Now, the question here for MARU, is he going to go for the fast third CC again, like he has been doing in the past couple of games? While it does keep you pretty safe, it does also make you vulnerable for a small bit of time, so it's not always the best option, even though it can be pretty nice to have that extra economy. Looks like for right now, the answer is no. Or yes, depending on where I put my actual cursor. So yeah, it is going to be third CC once again, just a little bit later. Not that big a deal. This does allow him to get those Hellions out and the starport. But yeah, we'll have to see where he's going to go with this. Reaper's still kind of just hanging around. He wants to sync that up with the Hellions, try to get a little bit more done. And I like how he's going to try and deny some vision from these Overlords. Obviously, REYNOR's been pretty aggressive getting in there with that information, which has allowed him to stay relatively safe. But without speed, he might not be able to see the third CC in time to throw down a reactionary attack. So I think MARU actually going to be able to get away with it once again. Yeah, has that Overlord seen anything? No, nothing whatsoever. So once again, he's playing it a little bit safer with these Hellions, keeping them back. He does have 6. So I would love to see him just kind of morph these into Hellbats with a Hellbat timing, but I don't really think that's how it's going to go, because we still don't see an armory. There's no medevac in play, so there's no real indicator that that's going to be the case. But what you can do is you can sync this up with your main army and still go for a pretty powerful attack. It just kind of depends on how aggressive MARU wants to be with this, because he's kind of just powering up right now. And yeah, that's all she wrote right for this stage of the game. Nothing too crazy going on. No real counterattacks from REYNOR because there's no attack to counter. So far, so good. Cleaning up some of that creep. Gang going to go down in the front. And now Reynor does see that this is quite a few Hellions. So he has a little bit of room to pause here. He just wants to make sure that this isn't some sort of Hellbat timing. But, you know, these Hellions still have all of their health on them. With that +1 attack in the Siege Tank, this is a really scary push that MARU looks to be gearing up for. The Hellions still kind of diving around, looking for any amount of damage that they can. But here we go. He's going to sync up with the main army and go for one big push, looking to end it. REYNOR desperately going to try and get rid of some of these siege tank locations so that he can fight this a little bit more effectively, but he's not going to be able to clean that up in time. This fourth base is going to be under threat. The Queen's looking to kind of respread that creep, just try and keep himself a little bit more safe, but we already have the siege up. Stim is done. Combat Shields is about to be complete as well. And I'm loving this. He's keeping the Hellions back towards the siege tanks to keep them alive. REYNOR just really caught with his pants down here, not able to get a surround on those siege tanks. And it looks like MARU going to be able to clean up house and win this game outright. This base going down. There's still so many siege tanks in the back, and by so many, I mean one. But the Baneling's not able to get the connections they need. They finally do get rid of the Hellbats. But at what cost? The second wave of units is already streaming across, and there's not that many Lings left to help. T-Tank is going to get some really nasty shots off on those Banelings, as well as MARU continuously pushing his way forward. There's just so little here for REYNOR, and he's actually expending some of those on the siege tank, so he will go down. And you know what that means, guys? Game number 5. Stick around for the epic conclusion. So with everything left to play for, we hop into the last game of the series. Spawning up here in the top for Italy, he is REYNOR. And his opponent down here in the bottom for South Korea, he is MARU. So this is where it gets a little bit tricky. Do you go for the kind of Hail Mary? Do you try and win this quick and easy, or do you go for the later stages of the game to try and just whittle down your opponent, hope that it's going to be enough? Because remember, this is only the quarterfinals, I believe, so you still have 2 more series to play after this if you do move on. So it's probably a little bit better to try and win it a bit quicker so that you can kind of start focusing on your next couple of games rather than try and go a little bit too hard on this one and wear yourself out to the point where you're not going to be able to play your next series. Looks for both players that they're not really going to be doing anything too crazy. MARU just going to be sending that scout out, just trying to see what REYNOR is up to. And I mean, I gotta say, this has been a very straight-up series from these 2 players. There's only been a couple of very quick games, and both players have taken one of them, REYNOR the first one and MARU the second. But they've been going into the late game quite often, and it's just very even between these 2, as we've kind of seen in the previous couple of games. They've just really been going at it, and hasn't really been a clear victor in either of them. It's just been really difficult to say that anybody was on top for the longest time in all of the long games. Now, MARU did skip the first Reaper here. He's just going to go straight into the Marine Corps production, as we got the Hellion as well going to be popping on out pretty darn soon. So everything is looking pretty standard right now. He is going for the 111 before getting up that third CC. So that is a little bit different than how he's been playing it out. What this allows him to do is this allows him to kind of get that tech up a little bit quicker. Obviously, if you're going for that third CC, you're a little vulnerable early on, but it's just not the biggest of deal if you do get it right after your starport and such. Now the Ling is going to be hanging out on the map, just looking to see if there is actually a Reaper or if you're going to be going for Hellions. And it looks like MARU is actually going to be going for a bit of a dream style here, as he's got 2 Hellions and going to go straight into that big Widow Mine drop behind it. So this is going to be fascinating to see what he does with this, as REYNOR actually hasn't gotten a scout out just yet. He only sees the couple of Hellions. He doesn't really know that the Widow Mines are going to be popping soon. And there you have it. We've got the armory off the back, so those Widow Mines going to be even more difficult to deal with, as you're going to have the Spore Crawlers in position since there isn't a lair. And I mean, here we go. The Hellions. It could move across as well. They can kind of get into the natural or even the third base just to get a little bit of work done. But I mean, REYNOR does get a pretty good scout of what is coming, so he's going to keep those Lings underneath the medevac just to make sure that he can't drop out of them. The Queen's going to stay in position as well, so they're going to be okay. And now he's kind of got a much better idea of what's coming his way, knowing that the medevac is there, but he's kind of chipped that away a little bit. So MARU having to be so careful in order to deal with this. Widow Mines do drop, and one of them gets a decent connection on a lot of those Lings, but the drones are pulled in time. The Hellbats going into the third base, trying to get what they can, but the Queens are going to be enough to kind of force that back. And I mean, from here, REYNOR has done a very solid defense. He hasn't really taken any damage other than a couple of drones, but the problem is I don't know if that Spore Crawler is going to be done in time. Okay, so it's just barely not going to be, so REYNOR going to take a little bit more damage. But nothing, no dice on the couple that were dropped at the natural. So overall, some okay damage, all things considered, but again, you're really hoping for a little bit more. You do invest quite heavily into this, and as you can see, he's going into quite a bit of Widow Mine production, so he's really just going to start pumping those out. Medevac hiding out in the corner below the production tab. So from here, MARU doesn't really have a lot of production in terms of bio. He's only got that one barracks producing right now. He's not really paying attention to his economy. Just now throwing down a couple of reactors, so he's going to start to power up a bit. But you know, at this point, we've got lair tech coming on the way. We have the Ling count just starting to climb. Drone production has stopped on 66 just because he feels comfortable enough to stay on that for a little bit. But you know what? I don't know if REYNOR is paying attention here. Never mind, he is. So he's not going to lose anything in the main base, but you know, MARU is just trying to be aggressive with this, and it's not really working out for him anymore. REYNOR just on top of everything here. So now he's going up to Hydralisks. He's preparing for the next stage. He's got his 1-1 upgrades even faster than MARU even. And so these Widow Mine drops not going to be able to really get into position to deal with anything, as the Queen's just all over the place to defend. And now the creep spread as well, just making it so difficult to make anything happen. Widow Mines are going to come in, however, get a couple of connections, but they will get taken down. The medevac gets sniped as well. There's not a ton of drones here, but they do ball up. So 9, 10, 11 workers going down. He wants to drop a couple of them before he loses that, but they don't get any connections either. Okay, so this is the kind of damage that MARU was hoping for. He might even get another huge, solid connection right here. We'll have to see. Yeah, there you go. 18 more workers going down. MARU on a tear now. He's equal on the worker count if we take a look at that supply. And now he's been giving himself a lot more room. He's just going to keep at it, too. Oh, my goodness. REYNOR a little bit quicker on the draw here. The medevac has to drop before it gets taken down. Actually, we'll get quite a few link kills, which is nice because you're going to have to force your opponent to remake those. Not paying attention, though. Losing that medevac for free. Definitely not the place where you want to be. He is expending quite a few of his medevacs in order to make this work, so he's spending a lot of gas that he really doesn't have. He should start to kind of transition here into more committed attacks because this is good damage, but it's not consistent. You know, you're getting 6 workers here, 7 workers there, but at the end of the day, your opponent is just going to be able to remake those quite quickly now that he's on 4 bases. He's got his queens spreading those larvae all over the place, and even that feels comfortable enough just to dump a lot of them so he can focus. From here, we do see a small push moving out for MARU. Yeah, he gets cleaned up once again. He's sending a little bit of a trap. Yeah, you know, we've got Hive Tech up, so he's going to start getting those upgrades for the lurkers. Widowmine's not able to get their connections off either, so MARU is just completely being pushed back on all sides. But he's still going to be trying to make it work as we've got the medevac coming in once again. The link drones a little bit bunched up, so he is going to lose 6 of them. But yeah, I mean, actually from here, MARU's doing a fantastic job. He's forcing him to remake drones where he really just wants to focus on army. But now he's going to have to kind of play around these lurkers. So the best way to do that is you do need to kind of clear up that creep in order to get a little bit closer. If you can kind of get the stuff in between the bases as well, that's fantastic because that allows you to play around the fact that lurkers are pretty slow to reposition. And from there, you just kind of get these 1-2 punches in. And he's actually going to hit before those lurkers finish. The banelings not going to be able to get the best of connections, although they do clean up a good swath of this bio. He is going to lose the base, though, which is a pretty big deal. But from here, you know, it's still anyone's game. If MARU continues to kind of get these base cleanups, then he's going to be in a fantastic position. Even more Widow Mines. And that's kind of the thing with this strategy. You do need to kind of consistently drop those Widow Mines to get the damage that you need. Is it going to work? He drops on the high ground. He doesn't focus fire it though, so he's not going to get that many drone kills. I mean, REYNOR's starting to have enough to defend in multiple locations, so that's where it gets a little bit dicey for these smaller attacks out of MARU. He does have the Ghost at home and a lot of Ghosts and tanks at home, so he's going to be able to defend any sort of push. But he's still getting the kills on the bases. He's pushing forward. The Lurkers not really in high enough numbers to take this down. I mean, he's even adding in a couple of SCVs here. I think that might just be a little mistake. And no, he's actually just going to use them to throw down some missile turrets to fortify this position. On the top side, though, REYNOR's going to be losing yet another base, just focus firing that down. And although MARU does lose this position, he's still pushing forward with the reinforcements, so he's going to be able to take some decent fights. I mean, this is so scrappy that you can't even really tell who's winning. Although MARU is getting cleaned up quite slightly, that's not really a lot of his army. So you can't really say that he's falling behind, because he's still staying equal in terms of this macro. Look at that, he gets a couple of more base snipes to Sea-Shanks though. This is where it starts to get dicey, as MARU does lose quite a few of his Ghosts, as well as those SCVs starting to fall. Lurkers are going to just gear up in that position to make sure that it's going to be a very costly fight to follow him. CC does barely survive as REYNOR shifts his focus. EMP going down on the Viper, so no more blinding clouds. But good positioning there. It's just going to clean up what REYNOR is cooking. And now from here, MARU does have a small opportunity, a little bit of a window, if you will, to push in, just because those Hydralisks count is pretty small. He's got plenty of Sea-Shanks in production. Does lose a lot of that bio in the front, though, which is pretty dicey for him. But honestly, from here, he just needs to kill off that base and retreat. Don't be too aggressive and lose these units. Keep in mind, one of the big differences between game number 3 and this one is that MARU is being a bit more aggressive with these siege tanks. He's pressing forward with them, and that's really giving him a little bit of a better result with these kills. Because look at this, REYNOR is completely oversaturated up here. So even though he has 99 workers, it's not really the best thing for him, as MARU's starting to just blow ahead in that income tab. Excuse me. Here we go. Once again, MARU's going to be getting this big push. The Lurkers are enough to kind of fight this location, and the Siege Tanks are completely on siege. So MARU does need to get out of there, and he does so with a majority of those tanks, but you have to be careful, as those medevacs are very volatile. And yeah, it looked like he got out of there, but then he just turns right back around. Siege tanks all get taken down. Looks like he has taken this location as well. He needs to morph that into a planetary. It won't be safe otherwise. Problem is, REYNOR hasn't really been able to get across. This is the first big damage that he's been able to do, which is really nice, just sacrificing this location. But up at the top, the Lurkers finally clearing up a lot of those siege tanks. Snipes, though, absolutely decimating the Lurker count. And even though it looks like MARU started to lose this fight, he has enough to just barely push through, and the reinforcement's going to be streaming across the map. Looks like we got some Widow Mines as well helping out. Yeah, a couple of yoinks on a nifty medevac as the force of REYNOR gets pushed back as well. Still a super even game. Really scrappy fights all over the place. This is really the best the best out of the series so far. I'm really enjoying it. As he's morphing in more and more. I was gonna secure this secure this bottom location. Has a small little hit squad, couple ghosts, couple marauders to hit the top, but I mean, these two players just keep seesawing back and forth, rotating around these different locations, going from top to bottom. Really fun to see, but the lurkers always just able to get on top of the siege tanks, and those will get cleaned up once again. Planetary Fortress might not be too long for this world, so he's just going to cancel and get on out of there. That's a lot of those medevacs that are going to be very useful for the fight, so he just needs to reinforce his army at the top, or at the bottom rather. Kills, not bad, not bad. The Widow Mines actually aren't going to be detected. You had to remake a couple of Overseers for that, and I mean, from here, REYNOR hasn't taken any sustained damage. It's literally just been a couple of Widow Mines here, a couple of Widow Mines there, so he's not really losing too much. It's just MARU continuously getting the snipes on these bases, which is really setting him back pretty darn far. But you know what? MARU is not in position to save this base. At the top, the lurkers do morph, so MARU just going to sacrifice this location as he gets a couple snipes at the top. But the lurkers absolutely decimating this army, even though they do get cleaned up. Like, they've taken down enough of that bio to really justify their existence. I'm just surprised. These players are just trading out so efficiently that this game could go on for quite a bit of time. It's really strange to kind of see these 20, 30-minute games come out. Oh, come on, Widowmine. You just need to hold on for a second. Oh, man, that could have been bad if that hit those lings. Just makes it a little bit harder to engage. So you know what? REYNOR is going to go on the attack right now. He has the supply lead for the first time in a while. There's a lot of ghosts, but the EMP is going to stop the blinding cloud, so the Vipers are absolutely useless. Now the lurkers have to retreat. I mean, REYNOR, I don't want to say he's overextending, but you know, he just continuously getting pushed back in all of these different locations. It's just really, really interesting to see how this is working out for MARU. Taking a decent engagement there, trading out quite efficiently, getting a couple of those drone lines as well as he's securing the bottom position once again. So a little bit more of a crisscross, you know. With REYNOR taking the top position, he is going to get some much needed income. MARU's starting to run a little bit dry here, it looks like, but neither player really been able to build up the bank, always just continuously remaking this army. So every single fight becomes a little bit more deadly, just from the fact that you're not going to be able to remax too quickly. Here we go. Gho's going to be moving forward. They need to kill off those Overseers if they're going to be super effective. Blinding Cloud's not going to be in the cards. EMP has been canceled. MARU going to have to pick up and get out of there once again. He does get out with a chunk of his units, and the siege tanks going to make this a very costly engagement if REYNOR decides to push forward. You know what? 135 to 160 supply, 105 army supply total. Taking a look at that. MARU those would have been so useful in the engagement. And I guess MARU's still a little bit cautious, knowing that REYNOR is all over the place sometimes. You know what? Once again, REYNOR's going to be pushing in with these lurkers. They get pretty far forward, but there is still a huge line of C-Tanks in the back, so those are not really going to get the connections that they need. A couple of good snipes as well, going to whittle down that count. Those are not MARU's units. I keep thinking that he's got something going on up there. But, I mean, overall, MARU is starting to wear REYNOR down. You know, REYNOR is long-distance mining with some of these units just because he does need a little bit of extra income. But, I mean, with how REYNOR's been rotating, it's been so tricky to get in. Blinding Count going to allow those lurkers to move on forward, but he's going to sacrifice a base to try and take this location. That's pretty much most of REYNOR's income gone, and the lurkers, they get pretty far forward, but they are going to get to start to get cleaned up as this big army from MARU going to finish up the game. GG is called. MARU takes the series. So thank you all so much for tuning in. If you like what you see, hit like, favorite, and subscribe for even more amazing StarCraft 2 content coming to the channel, and we will see you at the next big event. See you soon.